What we're witnessing now with what we've been talking about with Kavanaugh and what we've been talking now with Sinema and Manchin and the degrading of our democracy, this is how democracy gets killed. We're not actually going to see a murder. We're going to see a slowly tearing away of the fabric of our democracy. And this is what it looks like when we install judges that are corrupt, when we find corrupt politicians to kill policy that makes complete sense and should be implemented for the American people. That's how democracy dies. And, you know, this
when you have media machines, media, cable news, their print or online publication partners intensely pushing out horse shit. Yeah. Right. And not even doing the basics of journalism, just carrying talking points or making money from outrage. That also is a huge part of why we're here. I did get to see some journalists. There was someone who did a big mea culpa. I can't remember who it was just earlier this week on all of that. Of like, you can't, with this whole drive to sort of both sides everything all the time, that's somehow fairness or doing your job. How wrong that is. And then I saw someone sent a great graphic, and you guys, I know you saw this, of both sides. It's not a fair thing if you bring someone on that says it's raining outside, and then you bring someone else on that says, no, it's not. Your job as a journalist is not to say, well, look there, we presented both sides. Your job is to walk fucking outside and see if it's raining.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. This whole balance thing is not actually a good idea for journalism. It's, the Reagan fairness doctrine, the fairness doctrine is not a sensible thing because it equally weights both sides of any argument. But one side of an argument can be complete bullshit and doesn't need to be included into any reporting, and the other side could be completely accurate and should be dominating an article. But there is this thing that we got to be completely balanced, which is not great when you've got a party that only pushes lies and myths about vaccines or COVID, and then is trying to, destroy democracy on the other hand and install a dictator. I mean, that you shouldn't be giving equal weight to.
Just taking the known liar's word for something and saying that that's journalism, which is what that Mother Jones article did. She didn't call up. Did she get a hold of the dad? Did she go and try to get the bacon? She's got a fucking budget. We don't have a budget. It's insane. It's really, really, really damaging us. We can't. The reason we need a free press in order for a democracy to advance and why it's protected in the Constitution is we need them to actually do the job and the work of the press and not whatever this is that they've decided being journalism is now. We always go back to this and we end up talking about it over and over and over again, but I don't want to keep repeating that, but it's just got to somehow clean up that house. The Fourth Estate has got to get fire hosed. It's a disaster. It really is a disaster.
And it's not getting any better. I mean, especially on the right, it's shocking.
Orwell has a line about it, and I'm going to butcher it or paraphrase it. And he says, the purpose of journalism is to print what someone else doesn't want to have in print.
Right.
Everything else is public relations. That's what he said.
Yeah. So that's true.
That's it. True. Yeah. No, it is true. Yeah. It's a really good way of looking at it.
You should never be, as a journalist, you're always going to be unpopular. You should be unpopular with the people you're writing about, I think. Greg, let's talk about Facebook. You had a great podcast this morning on Prevail. It has to do with Facebook as a state. Explain to people exactly what that means. Why do you think that Facebook is operating as a state?
Well, we had, this is not my idea, I should say. I had Carrie Kukral on the show, who's great. You can follow her on Twitter. She's somebody that's out who has worked as a biomedical engineer and in media and tech media and stuff like that. And she's trying to really figure out how all this stuff kind of fits together. Zev, that you talk about often on your show, Epstein and that money and Ghislaine Maxwell and how that money infiltrated the tech sector and the science sector and that kind of thing, which is not
academia,
academia too, all of it, which is not something, frankly, that I know much about. So I had her on and was asking her questions about it. It's a great interview. She's cool, really smart person. And one of the things she said in the interview was, we were talking about, I asked her about Facebook and how to deregulate it, how to combat it. And she said, somebody to the effect of, it's amazing from the 90s to now how much things have changed and how these social media companies, these tech companies have taken on the role of a state, like a state meaning a country. And that we really have to reckon with that, how, what that means for us as individuals and as governments and stuff like that. So she said that. And then in The Atlantic this week, before my podcast came out, but after the interview was recorded, Adrienne LaFrance, the editor there, wrote this great piece also about sort of comparing Facebook. She called it a hostile foreign power, which I thought was great.
It's a great line.
The Atlantic article is really, really good. Like it's bang on, but it's also beautifully written. And she listed what makes a state. Well, you need a couple things. You need land. Okay, they don't have land. That's the only thing they don't have. They have their own currency now. They have their own ethos and their philosophy of thinking, and they have people. There's almost 3 billion people on Facebook, which is,
and they write the laws.
Insane amount of money. Yes. Now, how do we reckon with that? And it's run by this guy who thinks he's a fucking Roman emperor from the 4th century. So, and looks like one. Frankly, he looks like Gordian II a little bit. If you want to Google Gordian II, there's Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe Elagabalus a little bit. He's got this, and he does this. LB does this, I think, by design. The guy's worth $143 billion. He can afford. He can get a better haircut. He can. He chooses not to.
He is a puppet.
He for sure is a puppet. I mean, he for sure is a puppet.
Fraud. He's a wooden boy, and he will never become a real boy.
No.
Full stop.
Yeah. And he acts, I mean, he's obviously acting under the influence of foreign governments. I mean, that's not even like that it's a great line that she had there, but it is. He gets fed not only money, but he gets, I think he's marching orders from external sources that are not American, perhaps.
Well,
how about we just talk about the check that he got? How about we talk about the check that he got?
Yeah.
No one's willing to do that. Why was he forcing Kaspersky software in the shadows as a download on all new Facebook users and adopters after he took a couple $100 million from the Kremlin? Why was he there for the launch of Mail.ru? What is this fucking guy up to?
And he supposedly was
been up to no good. I will continue to say, and I said this in 2017, all roads lead back to Larry Summers as well. And that needs to really be looked at and dug into. Because I think that, they were just identifying, okay, here's a really good future data fucketeer, this kid that hacked into our easily hackable database to create this app that's born out of this, again, sort of a hatred and an incel movement towards women. Perfect for the Kremlin, perfect for an anti-democratic agenda, right? Let's help this kid along. Next thing you know, Peter Thiel's giving him everything he needs, and next thing you know, after that, when he burns through a tremendous amount of cash, and he's having burn rate that is unsustainable without going public,
right?
Because they didn't have a revenue model yet. He's heading over to the Kremlin when Medvedev is in there and picking up hundreds of $millions from Alisher Usmanov and Yuri Milner. And the platform magically transforms into all these other things. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
easiest. Again, it's so in our
I wrote this
faces.
in 2017. I did a 4-part series on all of this in 2017. It's now like 5 years later, and it's not. No one's written about this in the mainstream media. I don't think people have really gone back in there and said, what was Mark doing in the Kremlin there? What are the conversations that he had? Why does VK, or the Russian version of Facebook, look exactly like Facebook? How come it's exactly like Facebook? I mean, there's just questions around that you have to. And he supposedly, personally, was quite liberal for a period of time, very, supportive of Obama during those early years. But then suddenly Trump sweeps in, and the entire editorial policy, if they have one, which it seems like they do, swings to Donald Trump. Now, every one of their top 10 shared stories every week is by one of these right-wing podcasters. And, it's this really remarkable shift, which could only happen if you did it intentionally. I mean, it's not like America shifted that quickly. So, there's something going inside that's very dangerous.
I think that's bullshit too. Like, I don't understand why Ben Shapiro's show is constantly #1 in these Facebook things. Like, Facebook is a lot of old people. Like, I don't get that. It doesn't track. Like, old people don't want to listen to this young whippersnapper talking garbage. I don't know.
Jack Posobiec had a podcast that he just launched, and it was #1 for like 3 weeks, and then it disappeared. I don't know where it's gone, but he got to number. It launched at #1, and I'm like, huh?
How did you say Iran?
How did you do that? How did you do that, Jack?
I don't know. We're just making fun. I'm just making jokes.
Yeah,
we're joking around. It's Friday night. It's the after show. What was I going to say?
I don't know. You were talking about podcasts and the numbers and the right wing slant of Facebook.
I didn't write it down. I had such a great point, and now I forget it. So I don't know.
Okay, that's okay.
I'm going to eat my second cherry. Is what I'm going to do instead.
You eat your second cherry. What's the time?
Maybe it'll occur to me.
If only there was someone to bring me a cocktail.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is interesting. I've never seen LB do a show without her cocktail. So that's, we're not seeing the usual peak that comes towards the end of the show.
That's not true. I don't always have one, but I would say at this moment, it's, oh boy. Okay, let's move on.
We're giving you a virtual drink. Have a virtual cocktail.
Here's the other thing to remember about Facebook that I think is really important for everyone to grasp. I'm not on it. I have had to delete it twice. I'm sure it's active again. It is malware. It is, you guys. It operates functionally like malware. It's there on your devices, not for you to be on it or using it, but for it to scrape your data and usage from everything else. For it to track you, for it to find you, it is spyware. So, and then they turn around and they sell that, which they do. And we know, and if you just even look at what, it just is a sliver of the horror show that is Mark and Sheryl Sandberg, frankly, Sheryl Sandberg, just leaning fully into self-harm of young girls right now.
Yes.
And pushing algorithms down.
That Instagram story is amazing.
Into the Instagram and getting these girls, and then denying it, and then that was our own research, and we're going to deny it, and we're going to come up with some bullshit story, and they present like some woman who's like a blonde, techie-looking Silicon Valley safe space, and she talks in their gobbledygook jargon, and then so the other thing going on here is it's malware, it's spying on us, it's sold to people who then have bad intentions, and algorithms are then pushed out onto our children so that they will harm themselves, which is further fracturing society and further just sort of dismantling democracy, right? Because it's just making everything chaotic and everything miserable and defeating people and fucking up our lives, right?
Yeah.
So that for profit. You're going to have to love yourself more than you love Sheryl Sandberg's money.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of semantic that we need to keep pushing on there. What do you love more? You love your teenage daughter being alive, her life, or do you like Sheryl Sandberg's bank account? Because that's the choice. Choose.
And again, this is how democracy looks like when it's dying. This is what the death of democracy looks like. It's when foreign governments. I remember
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
She said in the Atlantic, hostile foreign power, but it's more than that. It is because, as LB pointed out, it would not exist in its current form without money from a actual hostile foreign power.
Right.
Basically, it's a hostile foreign power has installed this other hostile foreign power into our lives. But it's like when the Soviets put Castro in Cuba, but instead of that dude, it's like they've installed him in our brain. It's really, really vicious. And
that's right.
Facebook doesn't have the power that the British East India Company had when they ran India for 100 years and could like execute people and start wars and stuff. It can't do that yet, but it has so much mind control. The mind control that it has, I think, arguably makes it even more powerful, which is scary because that company was really, really, really powerful.
Yeah. But look, they are killing people. I think, their COVID and anti-vax thing is killing people. There's no doubt about it. Myanmar is another example. Absolutely, they're killing people and they're influencing the world policy and politics in a way which is, extraordinary. So I don't think it's happened anytime since then. You're right to point out the East India Company. So there's they're dangerous and they're above the law. They don't seem to. The entire Silicon Valley does not get any justice. Like there's no law and order ever around them. It's just they're the ones setting their own rules. They're self-regulating. No one can seem to accuse them of any crimes or find them guilty of any crimes. So they're so powerful. And yet it does, except for Theranos, I guess. But an exception. Where's everybody else? Where there are clearly crimes committed by Zuckerberg, including perjury as well. Like he's lied in front of Congress. Why are these things?
Let's bring this all back around to how you started the show, right? In that, first of all, to work in that company, you have to be brainwashed yourself. I think they're in a bubble there, all those employees. And so for us to keep doing this, hopefully it will be like the most shameful thing for anyone. I would love for them to lose their workforce. I don't know that it would make a damn bit of difference because of the type of assistance I think Mark Zuckerberg can always have available to him. To bring this back around to what is actually in that reconciliation package, that $3.5 trillion. one of the big things in there is to put tremendous resources back into the Treasury in terms of the FinCEN, the folks that track down anti-money laundering, the folks that track down tax fraud, the folks that actually did the job that took down Al Capone, right?
Right.
So if you're these punks, and I'm sorry they are, and who are also frauds, who are also clearly have, there can be criminality found in a lot of what they're doing. And as you said, Zeb, even down to something as simple, but seemingly not a crime since Kavanaugh, of perjuring yourself, lying under oath. There's plenty to go after when it comes to these tech companies to actually start not just getting the money, but, separating them from anything that they might be doing in terms of laundering money coming from dark sources through their tech, but taxing them. And I don't think it's just a tax equation, why there's the Koch brothers and everybody else is so against this. I think it's the investigatory power that would come into where does this fucking money come from and what are you enabling with it?
Exactly.
I do. I think that's the fear point and why there's such a need to shut down the reconciliation package. I think it comes down to the IRS.
I mean, Facebook
and
is
not
what
just where it takes tax numbers. Yeah.
Facebook is what elected Donald Trump. I mean, we know that. That's not a theory. That's an actual fact. That's how he got all his funding, was through Facebook. That's how all the misinformation was spread, was through Facebook. That's how they did it. So it's not like an accidental observer of this thing. It is the scene of a crime, probably the biggest political crime in American history. And yet they seem to be able to get away with it just because, I don't know, it's $1 billion of the economy every year. Well, get rid of the $1 billion. We want our democracy back. We don't need Facebook. There's no need for Facebook. We're quite fine before Facebook, and we'll find other ways to be socially in touch with each other online after Facebook is gone. It's not even been around for longer than 12. I don't know how old it is, but it's not a very old company. We can survive without Facebook. It's okay to shut the thing down because it's the scene of a criminal event. These guys are absolutely criminals. And there's a lawsuit right now making its way through Rhode Island, I think, that proves that they covered up everything around Cambridge Analytica. They were only concerned about their own PR and how they were perceived in the public. And behind the scenes, they were going to extraordinary lengths to cover up the entire scandal around Cambridge Analytica, which they were intimately involved with. I mean, this is not an accident. We are here because of Facebook.
Oh, I love all of what you just said.
There you go.
It's really good. It's really good.
I should also say that on Tuesday's show,
that's it.
The author of the book, The Contrarian, which is the Peter Thiel book, Peter Thiel and Silicon Valley's Pursuit of Power. Max Chafkin is coming on the show on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
That'll be a good one.
It's a good book. He goes places with Thiel. And Thiel, I guess, is so despicable. I mean, really, really, really another reason why Mark Zuckerberg was enabled throughout all those years. And basically, I think, sort of moved Zuckerberg away from the left wing into this fascist state that he's in right now. I mean, I think that's all Thiel's work in terms of Zuckerberg's evolution, I guess.
One quick thing. Facebook isn't just Facebook. Instagram is also owned by Facebook. So people have said in the comments, no kids are on Facebook. That's true. All kids are on Instagram. Instagram is how they, basically it's one of the methods in which they all communicate.
And WhatsApp, which is a huge other app. I mean, those three things, there's so much data flowing through
too. I know.
But WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. So you've got between those three companies, there's so much data that they have. They know who you're talking to. They know everything about you. They really, really do. And they can manipulate you in ways that we have no idea. There's no reason for anything that size.
We're handing it all over to them.
Yeah.
We're giving it to them.
And they're making money off your data, which is another thing.
But the irony of all of it is, if everyone stopped using it tomorrow, the entire company would die.
Yeah.
He would just be Tom from MySpace with a bad haircut.
It's so true.
What we have to make of him.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's grounds to shut down the company. I really do.
They're so wormed into everything else. That's what I'm trying to say is you don't have to use it at all. He owns you. They own you because of the way that it works. So I come back to it again. But if everybody left that company tomorrow, I mean, just honestly, how does anyone go to sleep at night that works there? How can they do it? They
have lost a lot of people, I think. But not all people.
It's got to have a cult mindset going on there. It has to be one of those, it's Nexium, but with data. it's like a multi-level marketing company, right? It's fused with, I don't know what, with Nixium. That's what it is.
It is, right?
And libertarian thinking, right, from Peter Thiel. And
a really shitty user interface. It looks like shit too. It's a crappy, unaesthetically pleasing interface.
You know what would happen if Zuckerberg lost all his staff is they would just make it out of Russia because they would have to over there.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just, it's not like they have principles. Speaking of, cult-like behavior, we've been covering on Narrative this week the anti-vax movement, and particularly this woman here, Dr. Simone Gold, who's gone from being an insurrectionist, that she is in the middle of the Capitol, to preaching anti-vax stuff. She started the White Coat Summit, which is basically the launch of all the COVID denial and the launch of all the anti-vax thinking that's been going on. She's now onto homeschooling, going after your school boards and bankrupting your school boards. And we had Dr. Nick Sawyer, who started this organization called No License for Disinformation.org, which works towards taking away the licenses of doctors like Dr. Gold because they're spreading lies around COVID and vaccinations. This week, we found out after all of that reporting that they're making millions of dollars off their anti-vaccination efforts here. So in 2 months alone, they made $6.7 million, for selling everything from ivermectin to whatever else they do to push these lies. I mean, this is an industry built on lies that is built on killing people. And she's still a doctor who can operate under the boards of these, state medical boards. So we just want to remind people that website that you can go to, and you can tell them about any doctors that are pushing anti-vaccination lies, as science, when they're absolutely lying. I think it's a great way to get at these doctors and at least have some stakes for them. So I thought I'd mention that towards the end of the show here, because here we are.
Thank you, Seth. Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks, Seth, for staying on these types of news stories. That if we had a little bit more support, could be pushed up, which is the point of Narrative, right?
Yeah.
Could be pushed up into a discourse so people could actually see it. Because I can't think of anything more valuable than disarming anti-vax doctors and even nurses. If they're out there using their license to spread all of that, they're actually doing harm. I mean, it's also because it gets the Hippocratic Oath. I appreciate you for doing
really
that.
is. They're killing millions. I mean, we crossed 7 million lives. Sorry, 700,000 lives in America. This yesterday or the day before. I mean, that's unthinkable that we've lost that many people to this disease. This is not a great fun way to end the show, as I'm just realizing we're at the end of the show. So we should try to think of another.
I have something.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Okay, good.
I got
Pull us out of this.
I
that's Greg.
LB, I'm going to ask you this because you can both answer. Is there something inherently attractive about Corey Lewandowski? Is he like this sexy guy? Because I don't understand. He's with Hope Hicks is nice looking, and Christy, what's her nose? She's evil, but she's nice looking. And Corey Lewandowski, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, there's been a lot of madness. There's been a lot of madness in the world, but I give up. I don't even know what to say.
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question.
You really want me to answer this? Yeah, okay.
No, it is a rhetorical question.
But so he finally got fired, I guess. That was the end of his Trump world existence, which is surprising that's the reason they fire him, considering that the boss is who the boss is. But there you go. Some people can have different standards for
people get off on power. They get off on power. And if this is a guy swimming in there with women who really get off on power, really corrupt women, of which there are many, and they all seem to find themselves around that former president. And he's in there bringing sexuality into the aphrodisiac that they all were having about their own sense of power growing. Then that's something, he's going to have to deliver on that. And so maybe there's a magic wand in there somewhere. But so he should just be sort of like the fairy, maybe he's the fairy godfather in many, many different ways. Maybe he's got some magical stuff.
And these are people who probably were never that successful in that realm before, I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe as they found power, they're sort of they lean into it.
Losers who found power.
Yeah.
And I bet we're going to hear about a lot more. You know, we already heard about how Caligula and the whole place was, right? With like everybody sleeping with everybody. And it just was like, God, these people who would touch them. Well, they're nobody, but they'll touch each other, you know? And so to stir up that sort of craven, to bring all of that Caligula energy into the White House was the part of the palace intrigue reporting that actually did have value, because it was about degrading that office. And, and I, as much as I can't stand all these books now still coming out, books from terrible people that could have done something but didn't do something, but now they've got a book to sell. I'm not going to read it. But like that Stephanie, whatever her name is.
Grisham.
But the side of it to pay attention to is how corrosive that energy is. So if you're corroded, like I can't imagine if Chris, someone first of all needs to find out where the fuck this woman came from. Like what's up with her? She came out of nowhere. She came out of nowhere in the state that's got the gas shit and the pipeline with the something's going on there.
Wait, did I not do that part? Did we not do? We did cinema, right? Didn't we? Did we not? No, oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! The best part of the show. The best part of the show.
Oh, we have to do cinema. I was hoping.
No. You got to just do this. I just got to do the two things about why she's as corrupt as she is. I'm sorry, I forgot that she is. So she's recently completed this internship at a Napa Valley winery, which she got paid $1,117 for the whole summer of being at the winery. She's not a typical winery person there in Napa Valley, but she's sort of got the job because of her friend Bill Price, who is a owner of TPG Capital, a private equity fund, one of the most lucrative funds in America. In addition to being an intern, which is a nice thing to maybe do when you're a senator, she got a $5,000 per ticket fundraiser hosted by Mr. Price in Napa Valley. And amongst the people who were there, Bill Gates, who funded her some money. God. And then she's now started a centrist PAC so she can support all these other centrist, I guess you'd call them, politicians using all this money that she's got from her friends in Napa Valley. Nothing, illegal with all of this, but it's not the kind of person she pretended to be when she first ran for office. And it's certainly not just an internship. It's a $5,000 ticket internship, much more fundraising than anything else. So, she's not clean at all. I don't think. The private equity fund is dirty, dirty, dirty. Not that they do anything, necessarily illegal, but their operations are aggressive and they lean towards the very, very rich and not the very, very poor in any given state, which is, I guess, dirty. I ran out of steam here. So that's the show for tonight. Thanks, you guys. I hope you feel better. I hope you do.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to feel better. I really do believe I'll be better by tomorrow morning, and it's not just wishful thinking. And I encourage everyone, give a little time and attention tomorrow to the Women's March.
Yes, yes.
And folks showing up there and willing to continue to speak out and do what we have to do in exercising our civil liberties to try to protect them. So,
this is all coming back. Donald Trump will be running for president in 2024. And the GOP has a very aggressive campaign and a real possibility of winning the House next year. So these guys are not gone. Everything we've been speaking about tonight is still ongoing. This thing's still moving. We're probably a third of the way into it. We're not even halfway there. So, everything from Kavanaugh to anti-vax stuff to Facebook, that's all still operating the way it was when we were there, started all of this in 2016, and it's still continuing. So I hope people aren't giving up hope or faith in this, because the battle continues. But, we still have to continue battling because it's not done yet. Greg, any last thoughts? Anything you want to share before we leave?
We haven't discussed the one nugget that came out in Stephanie Grisham's book about Trump requiring show tunes to calm him down.
Yes.
And, and that there was someone on staff nicknamed the Music Man who would play him soothing show tunes to calm him down.
What's a soothing show tune?
Midnight, not a sound from the pavement. Has the moon lost? I can keep singing while you fade out. So.
Oh, I was enjoying it so much, I would never fade out.
Let's all remember that is Putin's favorite song.
Oh, really?
Just so you remember. And he scored a documentary he made for himself with that song.
Really? How do you know all this stuff? You just know it.
Oh, fuck, I studied that bastard forever.
That's a great fucking song, and I'm not letting them have it. I'm not letting them have it. I'm reappropriating the song. Fuck you, Vlad. You can't have it.
On that note, I'm going to end the show. Thanks very much for being here tonight, LB and Greg Oliara. It's great to have you back together because we haven't had that for a couple of weeks. And we'll be back next Friday with the after show. Sorry, go ahead, LB.
And out ends of spooky days.
I'm listening to Greg sing us that.
Out of smell of morning. Anytime you want to cut, Zev.
Oh, no, I'm enjoying this. Keep going. I'm here all night. You can just keep going. No problem. All right, everybody. Have a good night. Narrative is made possible by viewers like you. Join today and support truly independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative. That's patreon.com/narrative.